Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday night, and that means it's Nightmare on Elm Street night. What's going on, Kill?
I'm here, man. I'm here for this. I'm here
Yes,
for it. Let's get into it.
yes, man. We are continuing our journey as we tiptoe closer and closer to possible dark territory. We're gonna be talking about Nightmare
You
5.
you sure we're not there already? Like I don't know. We'll see.
Oh my god. Put your blinders on and get ready. So Nightmare 5, the Dream Child. Let's see who we have in the chat real quick, and we're gonna hit the ground running on this. Um, we got a good friend, Ginger Ninja. What's
Hey.
up? What's up? Ginger Ninja is literally waiting for when we get to Freddy's Dead. He has told me that many times. He's expressed it in live chats and in comments. He is literally he's eating crackers and popcorn just waiting. That's what he's doing. And I get it because we're waiting too. That'll be next week. What's up, Russell? Good to see you.
Hey.
And what's up, Brandon DeBellum's in the chat? What's up, man? Thank you for
Hey, what's
sharing
up,
out
man?
the video. One of our newest Patreon members. Thanks so much for joining back with us, bro. We appreciate it. Um, and the Care Bear is in the chat. Carrie Craves Cinema herself saying, "Hey, hey,
Mhm.
pop in and say hey, much love. We love you too, Carrie. We love you
Mhm.
too." Jonathan's in the chat. What's up, Jonathan? Good to see you. Good to see you. Brandon said, "We're discussing Nightmare 5, so pain is guaranteed." Oh man. Ginger Ninja said, "One of my favorites." All right.
All
All
right.
right. James in the chat. What's up, James? Good to see you.
Hey, what's up, man?
All right. So, Kill, you know how we
Uh-huh.
do this thing. Let's just do a quick take as we give people just a couple more minutes to jump into the live chat. Quick take, bro. Tell me your overall thoughts or quick take on Nightmare 5, man.
Well, this is the third of the Dream trilogy. We
Mm-hmm.
had Warriors, we had Master, and now the
Mm-hmm.
Child.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the three, this is the weaker of them, in my opinion. And this is
Mm-hmm.
also Alice, her second entry.
Right.
Because we couldn't give um, any of the other characters, two movies, but we'll give Alice two, okay. But yes, you had mentioned a little earlier about like us heading towards dark territory, and depending on your favorite type of Freddy, we might already be there. And what I say by that is, do you like the dark Freddy or do you
Right.
like the comedian Joker Freddy?
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and this one, to me, you definitely are on one side or the other with this movie, in my opinion.
Right.
So,
Absolutely, man. This to me, man, and we've talked about this before, and obviously me and you lived this as kids
mhm.
growing up. This is a movie that has it's like a roller coaster, right? There are some things that I think that was very, very cool, and they were definitely trying to be very creative and imaginative, which in a lot of ways they were. They were trying to have a storyline that was a bit deeper, dealing with motherhood and things like abortion and stuff like that. And they also had a nice character arc for a returning character in Alice, and also Dan too. But they also had to face the MPAA. And we know what happens when you face the MPAA, bro. You're going to get a lot of cuts to your movie, to your kills and your death scenes and stuff like that. Same thing that was happening to the Friday 13th franchise, specifically, 7 and 8. So this movie is it's interesting because it's got a lot of things to it. We're gonna get more to that. Real quick, Ginger Ninja saying these were the ones I saw in the cinema. This one and Freddy's Dead. All right. All right. But I have some interesting kind of conflicting ideas, and I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. We're going to give people a little bit longer to jump into the chat if they choose to do so. So for you guys in the chat, for you guys watching the replay, sit back, relax. It's time to head to the Dream Child. You know what time it is. There it is. There it is. All right, man. So let's get down to brass tacks. Kill, this thing starts off with our beloved returning character, Alice, played by Lisa Wilcox. And shout out to Lisa Wilcox because, one thing that we've noticed, especially in the big three, is that you don't always get a chance for a reoccurring character to come back in the next movie, and especially with the same actress. So in the beginning, it starts off with her having a nightmare. Them damn showers and tubs, man. In Elm Street franchise, you gotta stay away from showers and tubs. What did you think of how it opened up? Because it was it was very weird and odd, like a different tone than all the other movies.
Yeah, I mean, you know, she's doing, her best interpretation of a scene from Psycho. She's in the shower and so forth.
Right?
But it's funny. Anytime I watch like a Freddy movie, I always wonder. Okay, clearly we knew we had returning characters. We had Alice
Right.
coming back and Dan.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I always wonder. Okay, how much time has lapsed? And where are we going to go with them? Or is it going
Right.
to be kind of a bait and switch where we think we're following Alice and then she dies and then, oh, she's passing the mantle to another, you know, new protagonist.
Hmm.
But yeah, like you were saying, the tone of this was kind of different.
Hmm.
And also the makeup of Freddy is a little different to me in this one. I don't know if
Yeah,
like
it is.
okay, good. I was just making sure it wasn't, me just seeing things that wasn't there.
Yeah.
So, and like you said with the MPAA, I can clearly see where they tried to hamstring this movie because it's evident with a lot of the
Hmm.
kills, but we'll get into that. I don't want to get too ahead of myself.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely changed up some stuff, and they intentionally changed the makeup.
Mm,
They talked about how they wanted to make Freddy look more weathered and more aged and so forth, which it does look like that. When you look at him, it looks like he's just older. Which, and again, I get it, man. This is the fifth movie in the franchise, and so all of these filmmakers, each time after Wes, they're trying to figure out how to make this their own movie and add something new to it because this is it's a franchise. But at the same time, some of the choices are just because I thought the makeup was fine. 2, 3, and 4, I think the makeup was fine. Obviously, 3 was a little bit different than 2, but 3 and 4 were pretty consistent. And I'm not the biggest fan of the makeup in this either.
mhm,
Um, but it kind of is what it is. It kind of is what it is. Alice comes back, and this whole idea of motherhood and Freddie coming back through the dreams of her unborn child. A lot of this was ideas that they had originally that they were thinking about using in Dream Warriors,
mhm,
but they nixed it. They said, no, we don't want to do any of that stuff. And now they now for the fifth movie, they said, well, let's try it. Let's try it. One of the producers, she was a new mother at the time. So that was one of her ideas she was throwing in there. So, the one thing I will say as we get more into the movie here, I will say it was interesting that they tried to do something that was a little bit bigger than just a couple or group of kids that are getting killed by Freddy. You know what I mean? They tried to go a little bit deeper with the story, so I will give them credit for that. We got a brand new cast other than Alice and Dan, and they're okay. They're all right. Yvonne probably the standout. Kelly Joe, we've seen her and stuff before, and then you got Greta. I will say this too, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I did appreciate that they brought Alice's father back, and
mhm.
he actually had some really cool moments with Alice. Like that was
Yeah.
actually a cool arc.
Mhm,
And I'm not trying to sound all mushy or whatever, but he's a recovering alcoholic, and he was such a different character than he was in most of 4, and to see him and his daughter kind of having that reconciliation, I thought that was really, really cool. You know what I mean? So that was something that was really neat that they added into the movie. But the other thing too is they had a lot of script issues. They were shooting the movie while they were still changing the script, because the other thing too is this movie came out just under a year after the Dream Master had come out. So they were up against it. They were trying to get this thing out. And again, I guess I understand that, but at the same time, it's like they were just rushing. They really were, and you could tell in the movie, you know,
mhm.
some things didn't always add up. And again, like I said, the MPAA. But real quick, let me just jump into the chat. JJMPB saying Lisa Wilcox was great. I agree. I think, and I will say this. I think that Alice is kind of an unsung final girl, you know. And even with us on this channel, we talk about a lot of, the high profile ones, whether it's Laurie Strode or Sydney or Nancy or Ginny, and so forth and so forth. But Alice was a good final girl, and did have 2 movies in a row where she had a really great character arc when you think about where she started in 4 and where she ended up in 5, with her character and also becoming a mother and all that type of stuff. So it was a pretty good arc. So I will say rewatching 4 and 5 has given me more of an appreciation for Alice as a final girl and Lisa
Mhm.
Wilcox as far as her portrayal. She was up against it in this movie, man. She was doing a lot of stuff, running, jumping, falling, wearing Freddy makeup for 10 hours. I mean, it was Lisa put in work. Katie's in the chat. What's up, Katie? Good to
Hey.
see you. Good to see you. And James saying, yeah, they were hitting a serious subject with teen pregnancy. Absolutely. And eating disorders. Good
Oh
point.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Brandon saying Freddy's makeup looks good in some parts, but in others, he's like 2 steps away from melted bubble gum.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Let's see. Let's see. Amanda's in the chat. What's going on? Saying hello. Hello. Welcome to the
Hey.
chat. Welcome, welcome. And by the way, just to remind people, if you haven't hit the like button, please do. It helps to support the channel. We'd appreciate it. Chuck is in the chat. What's up? What's up?
Hey.
And Ginger Ninja saying, I really like the effects in this one. Yeah. Um, and good point. Alice is the only one to beat Freddy twice and survive. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So let's get into some of the kills, man. And unfortunately for Dan, they brought him back, which was really, really cool. But they were like, "We're gonna kill you first, bro."
Hey.
Um,
Hey. That's par for the course, man.
I guess so. What did you think about what they dub the Iron Man? When he's like all connected to the motorcycle, they called it the Iron Man sequence. What did you think of that sequence?
I mean, this death was metal as hell. It really
Literally.
was. This is my favorite kill of this movie, and I get the whole MPAA thing, but a
Mhm.
lot of the kills in this one weren't my favorites. But
Okay.
this one I definitely like because poor Dan, he got it from all sides.
Right?
Because at first he was in his truck, and then
Yes.
Freddie is in the passenger seat messing with him, drinking acid and poured it on his arm and using his arm as a seat belt. Then he thinks he wakes up, but no, you're still in your dream. He just gets on a motorcycle, and once again, Freddie starts to transform him with some body horror into
Yes.
like something from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, or
Right?
or Heavy Metal magazine.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
really cool. It's really really cool, and of
It
course,
is.
it makes me think how much better could it have been without the
Yeah.
MPAA interference?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
unedited version of the kill looks fantastic because you see all the spikes going into his body and connecting him to the motorcycle and so forth. And from what I understand, about half of what was shot, with the effect wasn't had to be cut. About half of it, which is too bad. But
Mhm.
this also was the first time that Freddie we kind of got a sense of what was going to happen here. He's in the truck and he's got a bottle of whatever he's drinking and all this type of stuff and don't dream and drive and it's kind of like, okay, this is the beginning. This is where we're going to start it off. Now, what people also have to remember is this is also in that same time period where Freddy's Nightmares was out. And to me, it was interesting because after the huge success of the Dream Master, New Line was like, "Hey, man, let's keep on rocking and rolling." And so they had the Freddy's Nightmares, which I remember watching that as a kid. And there were some good episodes, but there were a lot of, and even Bob Shea, head of New Line, said there was a lot of lame episodes that just didn't do what they wanted the series to do. But I think interest and the reason I'm saying this, and I'll pass it to you in a second, Kill, is that I think that through the series and at this point with Freddy in general, with his exposure, Robert's take on Freddy became more of the one-liner Freddy,
Yeah.
cracking a joke, and he's great at that. But it took Freddy further and further away from horror per se. You know what I'm saying? Whereas in one, two, three, and even four, these nightmare sequences were played a little bit more on the horror side, or played a lot more on the horror side. Whereas these, and we'll get to some more, these were played more for laughs. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and exactly this is my point that I made a little earlier, just saying that there's that clear demarcation line
Hmm.
between this franchise of scary Freddy and then kind of over the top comedian Freddy.
Right, right, right,
Whereas I think, the other movies that you just listed, they had either they were really dark and scary and you barely saw Freddy, or they struck a good balance.
right, right, right,
In my opinion, once you get to this movie, it's tilted, into the dark territory zone where that's not my favorite type of Freddy, where he's only
right,
doing the one-liners and the puns and so forth.
right,
And
right, right.
some of the kills can be a little over the top, like really jumping the shark, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, I
So
agree. It's definitely, the dreams have become more and more surreal and
mhm.
less about the horror. Like if you think about Tina's death in one, which in my opinion is still like a benchmark, it's a totally different ball game with that death versus, like the deaths in this movie, like what's his name? The comic book
Oh.
kid, Mark,
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's fine, it definitely was trying to do some different things, but it's kind of like, it's starting to kind of go down that road. So, anyways, interesting stuff. Let me jump to the chat too, real quick. Skull Crusher saying Nightmare 5 is one of my favorites in the franchise. To me, it's a great continuation from the Dream Master. I will say it is a really good continuation, and it was good again to have Lisa playing Alice, and no disrespect to Tuesday Night, but it was kind of a shock to the system seeing a different Kristen. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
it felt like 4 wasn't exactly that true continuation of Dream Warriors. And plus they killed Joey and Kincaid in the first 3 minutes of the movie. So it's like, let's just kill all the Elm Street kids and let's move on. So Steven's in the chat. What's up, Steven? Saying Dan's death, easily the best scene in the movie. Yeah, yeah. It was a badass scene. It really was. Ginger Ninja saying it really was metal. It was, man. Love the Freddy bike. Yes, yes, yes. James saying, "Do you think at this point that Freddie was getting played out?" I definitely think he was starting to have way too much exposure, and even the folks at New Line, Bob Shea, and everyone behind the camera, they were even admitting that. I mean, you had and for you guys that may not have been around at that time, let me tell you, trust me, Freddie was everywhere. He had 900 numbers, lunch boxes, so much merchandise. He's on MTV. He's in music videos,
Talk
um
shows.
talk shows, like everywhere. And of course, by doing all these things, he had to have that personality, and it was very easy to see a quote unquote horror uh personality be funny. Like that's entertaining, right?
And one other thing I'll add to this, and it's nothing to take away from Freddy because unlike Michael Myers or Jason, Freddy is verbal, and that
Right,
also helps propel him to different areas. But
right,
Jason was in the pop culture zeitgeist as well. But
right,
since he doesn't talk,
right.
like when you would see him, guest appearing in Times
Arsenio
Square,
Hall. Yeah.
or Arsenio Hall show or something like that,
Hmm.
he still was in that character of, all
Right,
right, this is kind of creepy. I can't see your face, and you don't talk,
right,
But
right.
Freddy, it's gonna be Robert England. It's
Yeah.
gonna be him being verbal with you, during the puns, threatening you, but
Hmm.
also being a prankster, a jokester.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a good and bad thing about Freddy's character because he is verbal.
Right, right. And they were knocking these things out, one year after another. Dream Warriors in 87, Dream Master in 88, and then Dream Child in 89. So they were, and boom, and plus Freddy's Nightmares on TV. So they were just Robert was collecting checks. Robert put in work.
Yes.
There's a reason why he's horror royalty, and well deserved. Well deserved. Carlito's in the chat saying sorry to go off topic, but by the way, hi. Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
I'm excited for Scream. We are too,
Yeah, you
man.
are.
We are too, man. We can't wait to talk about it. It'll be soon. Yes. Michael's in the chat. What's up, Michael? Good
Hey.
to see you. Brandon saying, was anyone else thinking of Take on Me during Mark's death? Yes. Aha.
Yes.
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 Yes. Good call, bro.
To this day, I love that music video.
Right? Still great. I will say that was a cool part of that scene. You know, you did kind of get a little bit of that. Toronto Freddy in the chat. Alice, want to make babies? Right. Yeah. See, like, you know, and don't get me wrong, man. And especially, you know, as a child, you know, I was all in. Freddy is Freddy. Looking back at it now, it's kind of like, okay, it's just too bad that they didn't pull back on it just a little bit.
Just a
Um,
little.
just a little bit. Because I think Dream Warriors kind of started it. Dream Master kind of started to move closer to that edge. And then here, I think they just kind of jumped all in. You know what I mean? Like the scene with Mark, and I know I'm jumping around, but we'll get back on point. The scene with Mark, let's just talk about his kill, the comic book guy. Now he goes into the comic book. That's cool, and it's black and white, you know, and all that type of stuff. The first time he sees Freddy, and I wish I had the clip, I should have done this, but the first time he sees Freddy, Robert comes out of the shadows and Mark is up on this scaffolding or whatever. And the first thing that Freddy does is he comes over, he takes off the hat and he goes, and the musical score goes, duh, you know, kind of like he's saying hello, you know. So I mean, again, I get it because they're that's what they're doing here. They're playing him up for the entertainment, and it makes it fun, but it doesn't make it scary, you know. And so that's my thing about it now. What did you think about that kill? And of course, we have to talk about Super Freddy, you know. So.
Well, you know, another thing, especially coming off of the Dream Master, when he would kill you based off of your fears and phobias.
Right.
You know, this kid didn't have a fear of comic books. He didn't like seeing blood. But he really didn't have a fear of phobia of comic books. I mean, he loved comic books.
Right.
So this seems like you were saying earlier, just some things weren't consistent. This seems like one of those situations where they were just like, okay, forget what Freddy normally does. This will make an interesting kill. You know, we get to do something interesting. We get to put him into a comic book. He brings this guy that loves comic books into it and have them fight there. You know, like this one wasn't horrible, but I mean, like, look at that, dude. Like, this is where like we're jumping the shark big time. It's and for me, and maybe I'm just warped and dark and twisted, this was more funny than scary. This wasn't scary to me, you know. Super Freddy, more, you know, madder, sicker than a local madman, and you know, like, okay, and it's funny to me, you know, and of course he kills the kid, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this is a prime, and thank you for having those screenshots already. This is a prime example of, is this a horror movie and scary, or is this a horror comedy?
Right.
And you can have, you know, both. But you know, the big three, especially back in the day, we are horror movies. Freddy, Michael, Jason. We're horror movies. But once again, like I said a few minutes ago, because Freddy is verbal and he's a showman, and Robert is awesome, he kind of switched it over to the, okay, let's be more comical with this. I'm a dream demon, so let's have fun with these kills.
Yeah. And also one other thing I want to piggyback on that, but real quick, Toronto Freddy coming in with told ya comic books was bad for you. Yeah, it was. Oh man, Lady Luna's in the chat saying hi everyone at work for stopping by to say hello. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. Good to see you, Luna. But what was I gonna say? Also, his delivery of the lines was so. If you watch all the movies in a row, which obviously we have because we've been covering them every week, it's such a difference. You know what I'm saying? Which I'm not saying that's bad, but it's just interesting. Like in the first movie, this is God. And now, told ya comic books were bad for you. It's so different what's going on. And I think that's also why, and this franchise is interesting, specifically this, especially in the big three, because this franchise has multiple sets of fans. You got fans of the darker Freddy and you
Right.
got fans of the funny Freddy, which in a way I guess is good because you give variety. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
And this movie is definitely got variety. But let's get back to the story a little bit. Alice finds out she's pregnant after Dan dies. And so now the story kind of goes into this whole thing where she realizes that people are dying while she's awake. So I got to admit, this was kind of interesting because she's trying to figure out how is he getting to my friends when he's killing them and I'm not asleep and I'm not having a nightmare. So it's a little bit of a mystery. And again, Lisa Wilcox had to work, with this storyline. I thought she did a pretty good job. You got her friend Yvonne, that's a really good friend, but also just doesn't believe a damn word she says. You're crazy. Just relax. Don't tell anyone. So that was kind of interesting, but in a way it was good because even Kelly Jo, the actress, was talking about how sometimes you have friends that just they may not believe anything that's going on with you, and they just they don't always agree with you, in other words. And I was thinking to myself, that's kind of true. So that was interesting. And then of course you've got Greta, who's a model, and her mother is totally trying to control her and so forth and so forth. And this death, which is what we're going to get to, this death again, very surreal, very weird, and it was cut up by the MPAA. What did you think of this death kill?
Well, this one kind of ties more into kind of what's going on with Greta. She has a
Mm-hmm.
very controlling mother who's like
Right.
controlling about every aspect of her. Don't eat that piece of cake, you'll gain weight,
Mm-hmm.
stay looking pretty, like kind of one of those Hollywood show moms,
Yes,
cares more about the business than the child.
that's right.
Um, you got to love the parents in Elm Street, man. They suck.
Yes.
um,
They do, man. It's like
they,
what the hell's going on?
they do. And okay, wait, we guys, wait, stop for a second,
What?
guys. Coriander has said this time and time again. We don't know what Night is about to show. We don't know the clips. We don't know the videos. It's all totally organic. It's a lot live. I was just about to say, as scary as this could be, then you got Freddy coming in dressed like a waiter slash chef, and he's a bon appetit, and just like
Bitch.
yeah. Oh
You gotta
yeah, I'm
add the
sorry.
bitch in
You
there,
got it.
man.
Yes, you got to add the B word because we're past that point where now everyone's a bitch, And look, Freddy has the Acme account that like the Coyote has. So
Right.
he has all these gadgets and outfits, and I'm just, So yes, this yeah. Thank you, Brandon. Bon appetit, bitch.
Yeah, he says we've gone from I'm gonna split you in two to bon appetit, bitch.
you know, and this to me this kill, the effects of it were really good, and
Yeah.
I feel this one could have been extremely more scarier
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if Freddy was in that darker tone. I mean, right there, that looks like something, and I'm probably aging myself here, guys. You guys remember like Cabbage Patch Kids cards,
Right, right, right.
Garbage
Garbage
Pail
pail.
Kids cards?
Mm-hmm.
That looks like something from like a Garbage Pail Kid card,
Mm-hmm.
right there. But this is a nightmare for this young lady. She's being
Mm-hmm.
stuffed to death while all of her mom and her mom's friends and business associates are just watching and laughing like this chick drinking her wine, like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But
Mm-hmm.
but once again, the thing that is the silly aspect or the comedy aspect is the one that's doing the torturing, because essentially this is like torture. I'm gonna feed
Right.
you. This is something from
Mm-hmm.
Seven, gluttony
Yes.
or something. So
Mm-hmm.
this, we've seen this darker, like in Seven. Um, but yeah, this one, this is nightmare fuel. But once again, we're Freddy with his delivery and his outfits, he takes something that's dark and twisted and it kind of makes it lighter for the
Right.
audience.
Yeah, and Ginger Ninja saying, "This scene gave me Beetlejuice vibes. I was expecting dancing around the table."
Yeah, we got your
Right.
daughter, Chuck. Like,
And that's why I won't do 2 shows a night. I won't.
I
I
won't,
won't
I
do
won't do
them.
it.
Greta's death was too weird for my taste. Yeah, it was really weird, and they really cut back on that too. And I was saying this to Kill backstage before we went live. The unedited version of it, I think, was a lot better, and it was a lot more what they were doing. They had the scene where he was literally like he cut um her stomach open and was feeding her own intestines, and the practical work that they had done, it looked really good. It definitely was a lot creepier, and it was played to be, a lot more horrific than
Mm.
what we got. But again, like you said, bon appetit, bitch. I mean, and even after that, like, okay, so he does all that, and then the scene where you would get the jump scare, which I thought this was fantastic. And I love this scene where she comes out of the refrigerator because she, choked to death on food. But then again, Freddy grabs her, pulls her in, and it slams shut, and it's really cool. But on the refrigerator, on the refrigerator, you see this note that says, "What did it say?" It said,
Oh,
"Die, bitch," or what, something, bitch.
ha ha ha,
S-
bitch, or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something, bitch. And it's like, okay, all right, we get it, Robert. I mean, but again, man, look, we're sitting here having fun with it. We're smiling, so that's all that really, really matters. The aesthetic of the movie too, I wanted to talk about because Alice realizes that he's trying to use her baby's dreams, her unborn baby's dreams, and she even has dreams where she sees her baby, who is Jacob, by the way. And I think Ginger Ninja said he's a bit creepy, um, which
Oh
was,
yeah.
just another aspect. And you have that scene where she's even seeing the ultrasound and stuff. So it was some cool stuff, man. Like, there was some cool stuff in the movie, and it has a gothic feel at the end of the movie because they have to free Amanda Kruger's soul. That's how they're going to defeat Freddy. Free Amanda Kruger's soul, because I guess she was whatever locked away, and yada yada yada. They're kind of going back in the mythology a little
Back
bit.
to
A
the
lot of it
well.
was good. Back to the well. Yes, yes, back to the well. Freddie saying, "I love the gothic aesthetic of this film. Stephen Hawkins did a fantastic job. The only thing that falls flat for me is Freddie's makeup." Yeah, yeah, I can agree with that.
Hmm.
Igor is in the chat. David Lynch vibe. That's a good point. And welcome
Mm.
to the chat, by the way. And also, if you guys haven't
Yeah.
hit the like button, please hit the like button. That is a good point. It does have David Lynch vibe. I like that. Um, this scene with the stop motion, the eyes and the pasta, so well done. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, unfortunately, the MPAA kind of messed up this movie quite a bit. And again,
Oh
we've
yeah.
seen that in other horror movies around this time, specifically like Friday 7 and 8. But let's kind of get into, and of course, well, let me just jump back. We have the scene with Yvonne where she finally is in a nightmare, and she realizes that Alice is not crazy, and she has to deal with Freddy a little bit. You have that fantastic scene where Alice was no joke in this movie, man. Lisa Wilcox, she went after Freddy. I gotta give her credit, man. When you talk about final girl, like, she literally went toe to toe with Freddy and was not taking any shit. So, I give her credit for that. And we had some nice little standoffs between her and Freddy, which I enjoyed.
Hmm.
But let's get to the finale here. The bottom line is that we get to the scene where um, you've got Yvonne that is trying to find out where Amanda Kruger's body is to release her soul, and then you've got Alice dealing with not only Freddy but Jacob, her son, and trying to fight for the soul of her son. You know, what did you think of the ending? It was really weird. It was really imaginative, um, very surreal. Vomit inducing, maybe. I mean, the ending was crazy, man.
Yeah, well, that looks like something from the thing,
Right?
the molding of the bodies. Well, it's I guess the best way I can say it is once again kind of going back to the well,
Mhm.
because we kind of had an ending sort of like this with the last one,
Right.
where Alice faces Freddy in the Gothic church,
Yes.
and essentially the souls that Freddy has in him kind of revolt and so forth. And you have
Mhm.
like little scenes of like Amanda Kruger saying things or just being there witnessing it. And then in this one, you kind of have literally the same players, but
Mhm.
this one it does have like that gothic feel too, and also just that bizarreness of like Freddy growing into Alice and coming
Yeah.
out of Alice and facing Alice's child, and he's Amanda's Kruger's telling him unleash the power that Freddy gave you, and he's just shooting you know
Right?
his power just like directly at Freddy. So yeah, and you have like this with the stairs,
Yeah.
like out of like a bizarre puzzle painting or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
this was just bizarre. Okay, like I mean, look at
Mhm.
that. I mean, and I'm here for it. I love bizarre.
Yeah, it's
You
definitely different,
know, yeah,
like Freddie
definitely.
was saying, my favorite part of the film is the end set piece, looks like a Dolly painting.
Hmm.
Chuck saying the ending is very surreal, and, yeah, 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 the Escher nod with the
Yeah, MC
staircase,
Escher.
absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was cool stuff, man, and, but they also said, and Stephen Hawkins, who did the, who was the director, who also directed Predator 2, he had talked about near the end of the shoot that they were kind of, just trying to come up with some really creative ideas to kind of offset the fact that they were still working the script. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's interesting. Like visually, there's some cool stuff. Um, and you got to give them credit, is good set pieces and stuff. But like James was saying in the chat, is a and you said it too, a very similar way to kill Freddy, like they did in 4. And I think that's because they were up against the ropes, trying to get the script together and so forth. But they kill him, the souls, are being freed, and then of course Amanda Kruger is like, hey, what up? And I'm your mom, I'm your mom, bitch, and this and that. And it's over until it's not, because then they show at the end that Freddy literally is trying to come out of his mom. And it's kind of like, okay, all right, it is what it is. Um, you know, it, I don't know, man. It's an interesting thing. It was nice at the end. You see the Alice and the baby and Yvonne and Alice's father. They're just being a family, and so it was a good ending, and especially for her as a final girl. So I did appreciate that. And of course, they showed the scene where the little girl is jumping rope and kind of humming, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. So I don't know, man. It's put it this way, it's not bad,
Mhm.
right? But I do think that it pales in comparison to 3 and 4.
Definitely.
Like you said, this dream trilogy, if you will. I think it had some very creative things, but I also think that you could see the script issues, and also the MPAA really took away any of the bite that they wanted these death scenes to have. It took away a lot of the bite, and it's too bad. It really is too bad. Let me ask you this: what do you think about this? And of course, we're gonna rank the franchise coming up soon, so I don't want to get beyond this. But we talked about a couple weeks ago how 2 kind of deviated from the formula quite a bit. To me, this also starts the deviation from the formula as well. Do you think that this film was more successful than 2, or vice versa, if you were to say?
Yes, I feel it was more successful than two,
Okay.
and the reasoning for that, it's it's easy for me to say that because it's still piggybacking off of, in my opinion, the best movie or one of the best movies in the franchise, which is Dream Warriors.
Okay,
And
yeah.
like you were saying, with the speed that they were bringing these out, one per year, the Dream Warrior movie is still very fresh in
Right.
people's minds, and they're just like, okay, well, the Dream Master, it was good, it wasn't Dream Warrior, but I'm sure Dream Child will be Dream Warrior, and
Yeah.
so forth. Whereas two, you still had that darker Freddy, but you had a protagonist that people were kind of hot or cold on,
Hmm.
and the kills weren't as imaginative. Whether that's a good or bad thing,
Yeah.
can be a topic of discussion. But this one, we're further on into this franchise, and also all the stuff outside of the movie, all of the pop culture zeitgeist with Freddy. You
Yeah.
know, I think post Dream Warrior, that's when he became so big that Freddie himself almost became bigger than the franchise in totality.
Right. Right.
He's on the cover of Rolling Stone, and just
Right.
all of this stuff, and it's like, wow. And that alone brought fans to this. Like, oh, I need to see what this is all about, because this
Hmm.
guy is like everywhere, and he's scary, but he's funny,
Hmm.
so I can kind of watch it and not be as afraid.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of factors. But what do you think as
Well,
far as
I
that?
well, I will say this. I think that the darker version of him in 2, I think was a better version,
Oh, I
because he
agree. I prefer the
because
darker.
because he was just, and he was scarier as well.
Mhm.
But I think this movie had bigger ambitions, and I'm not even talking about the set designs. I'm talking about the story itself, with motherhood and abortion, and her fractured family coming back together. And I also think, obviously, Alice is a much better lead, as a final girl versus Jesse as a final guy. So
Mhm.
it's, it kind of has the ups and downs. I mean, overall, I think this movie was more successful because it was that continuation of the Dream Master, which, by the way, like we talked about last week, Dream Master has really risen up a lot more for me. I mean, I've always liked it, but when I was rewatching it for our episode last week, I was like, man, this was pretty damn good,
Mhm.
um so, and we'll talk more about that type of stuff when we rank them. But yeah, Freddie, this was this was a turning point, and it's not to say that it was good or bad. It just was a turning point for the character. But again, it's the fifth movie in a franchise that had only been around for 5 years. Nightmare 1 was 1984. Nightmare 5 was 89. So you're talking about 5 years, five movies. So, and a TV show. So there was a lot of Freddy going on. So, I give them credit for trying to keep him fresh. Kyle's in the chat too, saying, "Hey, Night and Killian and everyone. What's up? What's up, Kyle? Good to
Hey.
see you, man." Brandon saying, "Upon rewatch, I didn't hate it as much, but it's a far, far cry where Freddy began." Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Toronto Freddy saying it's not Freddy's Dead or the remake bad. It definitely has its shortcomings, but also has its charm. I agree with that. It does have its charm, and it's got Lisa Wilcox, man. I know I've said that a few times, but for real, man, I just think that she really had a lot of charm, and I think she put. Seriously, since I think Heather Langenkamp in part one, I think this is one of the strongest final girl performances in the franchise. I really do. I think she just did a lot. She had a lot on her plate. And, I think she did a hell of a job. I wish, and of course, next week, just to remind you guys, obviously, next week we will be talking about Freddy's Dead. I wish that they had brought Alice back, or at least in one of the other sequels further down the line. I think that would have been really cool because she literally beat Freddy twice, and as far as we know, is living happily ever after with her kid. So it's cool. It's cool. Uh, Ninja said, "Did someone say Freddy's dead? One more week." Oh my god.
Oh wow.
Uh, Toronto Freddy said, "I remember seeing Freddy on more children geared programming. It's true back in the day. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we all loved it, but at the same time, we were being entertained. And then when you think of it on the horror level is when you start to kind of pick it apart a little bit more, at least for me. Chuck saying, I think Alice is better than Nancy. I could definitely say it definitely is a contest because again, Alice had so much to do in this movie versus even the great Heather Langenkamp in part one. I really do agree. Alice killed it. All right, guys. Well, that's pretty much it for what we got for Nightmare 5, The Dream Child. It truly, at least for us, is the beginning of dark territory, and the franchise it's just interesting. And for you guys that have been around long enough, you guys know we've gone through the Friday franchise, we've gone through the Halloween franchise, we've also gone through the Scream franchise. And when you look at the Nightmare franchise, it's interesting because at this point, the fifth entry, they really just make a big pivot, as far as what Freddy does. And again, there's a lot of fans of it, and there's a lot of people that felt like, I kind of like the scarier Freddy. So it's just interesting conversation. Me, I still love these movies. Robert is horror royalty, but from the horror perspective, this is where and that's why, of course, eventually when we talk about Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Wes was like, "Hey, fuck this shit. We got to get back to brass tacks. We got to
Yes.
make him scary again." What's funny too, and it's interesting for Never Sleep Again, the documentary, they were talking about in this movie that they were wanting to make Freddy scarier, and they started with the design, making him more weathered and aged. But for real, man, if you think about the scenes that Freddy was in, most all of them, they were one-liners.
Hmm.
Almost all of the scenes he was in was played for a joke, and I was just kind of thinking, what happened to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, we could rant about this all night, but we won't. But it's just interesting. It really is.
Oh yeah.
Brandon and Nancy's my favorite final girl, but Alice rocks. I agree. James saying Alice number 2, for Nancy number 1. All right. Michael saying I enjoy Dream Child. Not my favorite. It's still Dream Warriors for me. Yeah, I could agree with that. Dream Warriors. I think it's just a better movie, better written movie. Overall, better characters. The development. And Freddy still has those elements of horror. Like
Yes.
he's trying to scare you. In this movie, he's bon appetit, bitch. Don't dream and drive. Oh man. Okay. Anyways, okay. So for you guys here, thanks for hanging out with us. We really appreciate it as always. Please leave us some more comments. You guys are having great conversations here. Leave us some comments. We can talk more about this, have more discussion. This is a really interesting entry in the franchise to have that conversation with. Who knows? Maybe we'll revisit it later on at some point. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps to support us. We really appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed to the Nightwatch Zone, do it. Boom. And you're done. And also to remind you guys, next week we will be talking about Freddy's Dead. And the week after, we'll be talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Those streams are up on the front page of the channel. Please hit the like button for those. Get us started with that. Next week on Tuesday, before we do Freddy's Dead, we are going to be talking about John Wick. Finally, we've been waiting.
Finally.
We've been waiting a long time to do that. So definitely check out the page. Hit some likes for us, man. It really, really helps us a lot. Denisha just jumped to the chat. What's going on? Good to see you. Good to see you. Ginger Ninja saying the OG is still the best, but I like all the Freddy films. I hear you. I hear you. All right, guys. We will catch you all later. Take it easy. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace. And
Peace.
bon appetit, bitch.